Nam is 22 years old this year, a third-year architecture student at a university in Saigon. He's tall, slim, quiet, introspective, and has a habit of doing everything alone, not because he wants to appear strong, but because he's grown used to loneliness since childhood. Nam's parents died in a traffic accident when he was just 10. He lived with his grandmother in the countryside throughout middle and high school. After she passed away, Nam packed up and moved to the city for college, working part-time to support himself. He didn't like crowds, didn't hang out with friends, just wanted a quiet place to study and get through each day. That's also why, today, Nam is standing in front of a cheap rental room at the end of a narrow alleyway, where people rarely look, rarely ask questions, and especially, it's half the price of his old place. Nam pulled the key from the rusty lock, his right hand gently sliding the iron door open with a long, chilling creak. A musty smell hit him in the face, like unwashed bedding mixed with something acrid, like stagnant water sitting in a drain for too long. He turned around and forced a smile to ease the awkwardness. Nam set his backpack down on the rough tile floor, then spoke to the landlady standing behind him. "Has this room been empty for a while, sis?" The landlady, a woman in her early 40s, hair tied in a bun, a face weathered by time, replied softly, though with a hint of hesitation. "Yeah, over half a year now. Someone rented it before but left suddenly. This is the only room left now." Nam nodded, trying not to show discomfort as the stench crept into his throat. "I'm not picky, as long as it's quiet and cheap." The landlady looked at Nam for a moment, then nodded slightly. "Yeah, the other rooms here are rented by students and working folks. It's quiet, just move in, let me know if you need anything." With that, she turned and walked away, her footsteps echoing slowly down the long hallway. Clop, clop, clop. Nam watched her go, a strange feeling briefly washing over him, not exactly fear, but a sense of isolation. Room number 6 was at the end of the row, near the boundary wall of the complex. It was old, small, but had a window facing the backyard. The afternoon sunlight filtered through the dusty curtain, casting long beams across the floor. Nam opened his backpack, pulling out a few items: laptop, books, toothbrush, face towel. He laid everything out neatly, like he was trying to fill the emptiness of the cold, aging room. His phone buzzed, a message from Hung, his close friend. "Did you get the room yet? Don't pick something too cheap. Might be problems." Nam replied, "All good, a bit far from campus but quiet. I need quiet to study." A moment later, Hung messaged again, "Call me if anything weird happens. And remember to light incense for the ancestors when moving in. Got it?" Nam smirked. Hung had been into spiritual stuff since high school. But Nam, he believed in logic and facts. Ghosts only existed in movies or the minds of the easily frightened. He mumbled to himself, "What could be weird, really?" Nam opened his laptop, put on headphones, and dove into architecture materials. He was so focused, he didn't notice when night fell. Around 1 a.m., the room was dimly lit by the desk lamp. Outside, a light breeze whispered. Nam shut his laptop, stretched. The crack from his spine echoed in the silence. He got up, used the restroom, then returned to bed. The moment he lay down, he heard a faint sound. Clack, like a sliding door being gently pushed. He frowned, sat up, glanced at the main door. It was latched shut. But the sound came again. Not from the main door. From inside the room. Nam turned his head. The window. The curtain swayed slightly, even though there was no wind. A blurry dark figure seemed to be standing outside. Beyond the glass. Nam jumped up, heart racing. He stepped over, yanked the curtain aside. Outside was a tall wall and the adjacent building. No one there. He opened the window and looked down. The backyard was pitch black. Only patches of moss-covered ground visible. Nam closed it, muttering, "Probably just a tree shadow." He returned to bed, forcing himself to sleep, but his eyes remained open, ears catching even the faintest sounds. Next morning, Nam went out to get breakfast. A humble eatery was just a few dozen meters away. When he asked the lady there about the rental, she chuckled. "That place? Haven't seen a new tenant in a long while. Used to have some students, but heard they got sleep paralysis. Couldn't sleep." Nam was surprised, asked again, but the landlady didn't mention anything. The eatery lady added an egg to his rice box and replied vaguely, "Who'd rent it if she did? But if you feel fine, then no problem. Just that. People say those rooms at the end of the row are haunted." Nam didn't reply, just carried his food back. He opened the door and stepped in, then froze. On the desk, among the books he had neatly arranged the night before, sat a folded old piece of paper. Nam looked around. The door was still locked. His hands trembling, he opened the paper, scrawled in shaky blue ballpoint pen, "Don't look into the mirror at 3 o'clock." Nam picked up the note again. The ink was pale blue, handwriting shaky and rushed. No date, no name. He swallowed, eyes scanning the room like trying to catch someone playing a prank. But aside from the fan's steady hum, everything was still. Nam mumbled, crumpling the note and tossing it into the trash. Probably something someone shoved in before, and the wind blew it out. He convinced himself, brushing off the chill running down his spine. After breakfast, Nam cleaned the room, changed the bedsheet, wiped down the desk mirror, and the wall mirror too, something he rarely paid attention to. The old mirror had a worn wooden frame, its surface lightly scratched as if someone once used a knife on it. On the lower left corner were faint rusty stains that looked like dried blood. Nam thought of taking it down altogether, but the nails holding it were too deep to remove easily. He clicked his tongue. Whatever, it's just a mirror. That night, rain came out of nowhere. The sound of rain on the metal roof beat like steady drumming. Nam sat at the desk, typing away on his group project design. Suddenly, his phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. 3 a.m. Don't look into the mirror. Nam jolted. He stared at the screen. No name, no profile picture, just one single line. He called back immediately, but only the automated voice replied, "The number you have dialed is currently unreachable." Nam hesitated for a few seconds, then deleted the message. He returned to his seat, but his focus was completely gone. 2:57 a.m. Nam jolted out of bed. That night, he had slept fitfully, feeling like someone kept pacing back and forth in the room. The phone's clock beeped softly. Nam opened his eyes. Pale light from outside spilled through the thin window curtain, making the room look washed out. He looked at the clock. 2:59. Then, as if something urged him, Nam turned his head toward the mirror. He couldn't remember when he got out of bed, couldn't recall how he ended up in front of the mirror. All he knew was, when Nam stood there, staring at his own reflection, what stared back at him was no longer just himself. Over his left shoulder, a woman was standing next to him, long hair covering her face, wearing a wrinkled white dress. Nam held his breath. His hands started to tremble. He spun around, but behind him was just an empty wall. No one there. Nam looked back at the mirror, only his own reflection now. He stepped back, breathing hard, then collapsed onto the floor. His phone buzzed again. "She's watching you from inside." The next morning, Nam went to the phone shop near his place, asking them to trace the number that had texted him the night before. But the employee shook his head. "Can't be done, bro. If it's a burner SIM, there's no way." Nam was about to say something more when his phone buzzed again. This time, it was Hung calling. He picked up, voice hoarse. "Hello?" Hung was on the line, sleepy but worried. "You okay, Nam? Last night I suddenly dreamed of you standing in front of a mirror. And someone touching your shoulder." Nam sat up straight, quickly asking, "Did you see that person clearly? Was it a woman?" Hung went silent for a few seconds, then slowly said, "Long hair, wearing white. But her face, I couldn't see. It was pitch black, like it was covered." Nam swallowed. A chill like needle pricks crawled over his skin. Hung continued, "I saw the mirror behind you. Something appeared on it. It was blurry, but I think it said, 'reflect,' or something." Nam jumped to his feet. He looked at the mirror on the wall. The surface was foggy with condensation. But as he approached, he discovered a line of reversed writing had appeared in the corner of the mirror, as if drawn with a wet fingertip. "Cursed spell reversed. The mirror never forgets." Nam didn't know what "cursed spell reversed" meant. He didn't know why it involved him. And he didn't know why ever since stepping into this room. Fragments of some old story had started to unfold. A story that reminded him this wasn't just about a cheap place to stay. Nam sat staring blankly at the mirror. That line, still faintly visible. even after he had wiped it multiple times with a wet cloth. The more he wiped, the more the smudges spread, like oil in water. His phone buzzed in his pocket. Hung again. Nam raised the phone to his ear. His voice rough. "I'm still alive." Hung exhaled in relief. "Good, I couldn't sleep. Ever since you rented that place. I've had a weird feeling. Remember my cousin? Back in middle school, she used to mess with spells. Now she's a nun at Bu Kwang Temple." Nam nodded, even though Hung couldn't see. "Yeah, so? I sent her a picture of the mirror. She only said one thing. A cursed spell reversal never happens on its own. Someone must have done something wrong first." Nam frowned. "What does that mean?" "I'm not exactly sure, but she said if there's an object in the room that's ever been cursed, and the next person doesn't remove it properly, things can bounce back. Mild cases cause insomnia, hallucinations. Severe cases." Hung trailed off, not daring to continue. Nam grabbed his phone, snapped a photo of the mirror, then asked, "So what do we do now?" Hung replied quickly, "I'm coming over tonight. I can't sit still. I'll bring some stuff, not for an exorcism. Just precautions." Nam was silent. A moment later, he said, "All right." 8 p.m. Hung arrived, carrying a paper bag filled with incense bundles, prayer beads, and a wooden-handled dagger. Nam frowned. "Are you trying to ward off ghosts or go hunting?" Hung gave a dry laugh, then looked around the room. "Even from outside, the energy here feels heavy. How are you managing?" Nam closed the door and drew the curtains shut. "I'm not sure, but every night, I hear someone walking in the hallway, like they're not ready to leave." Hung sat on the bed and pulled a folded piece of paper from his bag. "I got a handwritten note from my cousin. She said if you feel something's off here, try to find out about the previous tenant. Because a cursed spell only reverses when someone disrupts the original intent, or uses it for the wrong purpose." Nam nodded slowly, his eyes drifting toward the study desk. Then he remembered. The day he moved in, the landlady had said something. Someone used to rent this room but left suddenly. Nam stood up, opened his phone, and searched for a recording he had secretly made when he first got the room. It was a strange habit he had, recording people's voices to remember them. In the audio, the landlady could be heard saying, "That girl, pretty, but quiet, stayed here for 3 months. Then said she was getting married. But she left without warning, just locked the door and disappeared. I thought she was dodging debt." Hung turned to him, his face serious. "If she was just getting married, why would she leave all her stuff behind?" Nam nodded. The room fell silent. Then Nam asked, "Do you know how to find her info?" Hung furrowed his brow, thinking, "Maybe, if anyone filed a report on this room, there'll be police records. But we're not family, it'll be hard to access." Nam suddenly thought of the landlady. He grabbed his phone and called her. A moment later, her familiar voice answered. "Hello, Nam?" Nam asked directly. "Ma'am, I wanted to ask more about the previous tenant. That girl, do you still have her info?" The landlady paused for a moment, then replied slowly, "Yes, I do. But, is something wrong?" Nam replied carefully, "No, ma'am, I just noticed a few old items in the room and wanted to return them if needed." The landlady chuckled softly. Her name was Trang, Nguyen T. Trang, from Tay Ninh. I still have her ID and a photocopy of her household record. That girl, I think she had some kind of illness. At night, she'd talk to herself. One time I even saw her sitting in front of the mirror for hours." Hung, hearing that, leaned in and whispered to Nam. People affected by reversed spells are often obsessed with mirrors. Mirrors are reverse gateways. Nam thanked the landlady and hung up. A cold feeling crept over him. He turned to Hung, his voice lowering. "Do you think Trang never actually left this room?" Later that night, while the two were sitting and analyzing everything, the mirror suddenly made a faint clop sound, as if someone had just knocked from the inside. Nam and Hung immediately turned around. In the mirror, they were both still sitting there. But, behind them, a third figure was reflected. Long hair almost covering the shoulders. A wrinkled white dress, standing directly behind Nam, her right hand placed on his shoulder. Nam froze. Hung, panicking, grabbed the dagger and rushed behind his friend, but in real life, there was nothing there. Only in the mirror was there another person. Hung's voice trembled. "I see her. Nam, she only appears in the reflection. She never left." Nam clenched his fists, trying to stay calm. If she hasn't left, it means there's still something she hasn't said. Hung turned, breathing heavily. Or maybe, she's not actually dead. The next morning, the room still felt damp, even though the sun was blazing outside. Nam hadn't slept. He and Hung stayed up all night, taking turns watching the mirror, waiting to see if the figure would reappear. But after midnight, everything had gone quiet again. Hung cracked open an energy drink, took a sip, and spoke hoarsely. "I think we have to go to the girl's hometown." Nam leaned against the wall and nodded. "Tay Nin. I remember the landlady said her name was Nguyen T. Trang." Hung grabbed his phone, typing her name, digging through old Facebook posts, student groups, and even spiritual forums. After more than an hour, he stopped at a post from 6 months ago. A female student named Trang, studying pharmacy, mysteriously disappeared in Saigon. Her family couldn't reach her. Her phone was off. She had previously lived in a boarding house in District 11. The family filed a police report, but there are still no leads. Hung pointed to the bottom of the post. "Here, there's an address in Tay Ninh, Hamlet 3, Phuoc Hung Commune." Nam jumped up. "Let's go." That afternoon, they arrived in Tay Ninh. Phuoc Hung Commune was a peaceful rural area, with red dirt roads, wide open fields, and the distant sound of roosters crowing at midday. Trang's family home sat quietly among cashew trees, its plaster walls old and weathered. A woman in her 50s opened the gate. She looked at Nam and Hung with suspicion. But when Nam bowed politely and spoke gently, "Excuse us, we're old friends of Trang. We heard she went missing, so we came to check in." The woman paused for a moment, then nodded and invited them inside. She introduced herself. "I'm her mother. My name is Sao." The house was simple inside, but there was a small altar in the corner. On it was a photo of Trang, bright eyes, but no smile, staring straight ahead. Hung whispered, "If there's an altar, the family must think she's gone." Nam didn't answer, just stared quietly at the altar. Mrs. Sao sat down on a wooden chair, her hand clutching the edge of her blouse. "I know something happened. Ever since she disappeared, I've dreamed of her standing in the yard, holding her stomach, not saying a word. Some nights I hear her call my name. And once, the mirror in her room cracked for no reason." Nam sat across from her and gently asked, "Mrs. Sao, may I ask, did Trang ever get involved with anything spiritual?" The woman lowered her head. After a long silence, she slowly said, "She once fell in love, got betrayed. After that, she went to a spiritual master to cast a reverse love spell." Nam and Hung exchanged a look. "Reverse love spell? What does that mean?" Hung asked. Mrs. Sao clenched her hands, her voice shaking. "It means using a spell to bring someone back. But the price is the soul must stay in the mortal world if the spell fails." Trang made one wrong move and couldn't return. Outside, the rain began to fall. Each drop thudded on the tin roof, like someone softly sighing. Nam asked, "Do you know who that master was? Are they still alive?" Mrs. Sao shook her head. "I don't know. She never told me. But I remember once, she brought home an old mirror. After that, she changed. She'd sit and stare into it all night. She'd mumble his name." Nam suddenly felt a chill down his spine. He asked softly, "What was his name?" Mrs. Sao looked up, eyes red. "Tam." On the way back, Hung stared out the car window and murmured, "I have a feeling that mirror in your room is the one." Nam nodded, his eyes dark. A reversed spell is stubborn. Trang failed the ritual, and her soul got stuck. And if it's not cut properly, it'll keep searching for someone to replace her. Hung furrowed his brow. "Replace?" Nam sat up straight, gripping the seat. "The person who moved in after Trang is me." That night, when they returned to the room, the lights flickered. The mirror was no longer foggy. The glass was crystal clear, reflecting every detail. And in the center of the mirror, a new line appeared in something dark red. "If you can't cut it, you must stay in her place." The whole room seemed to stop breathing. Nam stepped back. The flickering fluorescent light made the red writing in the mirror look like it was bleeding, each letter dripping slowly onto the floor. Hung swallowed hard, his voice dry. "It knows you now. This isn't a warning anymore." Nam said nothing, then reached out and pulled the curtain over the mirror. "We have to find someone who can cut the spell. Tonight, at 10 p.m., Hung called his cousin, the one who used to practice dark magic but later became a nun at Bu Quang Temple. She agreed to help, but insisted Nam come to the temple so she could examine his energy and karmic ties. Nam and Hung sped through the night, rain falling lightly like it was trying to wash away their fear. When they arrived, the temple courtyard was quiet. The dim light of an oil lamp flickered from the main altar, making the atmosphere even colder. A woman in a gray monk's robe stepped out, her face serene, eyes deep. "Nam, right?" Nam nodded. "Yes, ma'am." She motioned for them to follow her into a small room behind the main hall. On the altar was a statue of Quan Im and a very old incense bowl. She brought out a round bronze mirror and placed it on the mat. "Sit down, look into this." Nam knelt down, his eyes meeting the mirror. But it reflected nothing, only a dark, empty void, like a bottomless well. The woman nodded slowly. "Just as I thought, the reversed spell has already taken hold. It's not a possession, but your consciousness is being trapped in a false reflection. If it continues, you'll eventually forget who you are." Nam looked at her and softly asked, "Can she, Trang, still be saved?" The woman didn't answer right away. She lit 3 incense sticks and prayed quietly. After a while, she finally said, "She's not evil, but the failed spell trapped her soul. People like her can't pass on unless someone leads them out." Hung asked, "Lead her? You mean, help her come out of the mirror?" She nodded. "To save a soul trapped in reflection, the chosen one, Nam, must enter the ritual, confront the spirit, and personally guide her out. But," she looked straight at Nam, her voice slowing, "if your mind isn't strong, you'll be the one who gets stuck instead." Nam didn't hesitate. "I can do it." The ritual began at 2:45 a.m. She drew a circle of salt around the mirror in the rental room. Inside the circle were placed an incense bowl, a piece of white silk, and a wooden comb, all old belongings brought up from Tay Ninh by Trang's mother. As requested, she gave strict instructions. At exactly 3 a.m., you must look into the mirror. When you see the girl, reach your hand out to her. But absolutely, do not let her touch your face. She can touch your hand, your heart, but if she touches your face, her spirit will enter you. Nam sat in the center of the salt circle. Hung waited outside, holding the incense and keeping time. The room dimmed. Rain outside the window began to fall harder. 2:59. The mirror remained still. Nam clutched the prayer beads in his hand. 3 o'clock. The curtain dropped without being touched. A gust of wind blew backward into the room. In the mirror, Nam's reflection suddenly turned its head, even though he hadn't moved at all. That reflection slowly tilted to the side. And then, Trang appeared. She stood next to Nam's reflection. A white dress, hair covering her face, holding a comb. The space inside the mirror was pitch black, with only the two of them, as if it were a reversed parallel world. Nam swallowed, then gently reached out his hand. "Trang, come with me. You don't have to stay here anymore." The girl lifted her face. Pale white, swollen eyes, like she'd cried every night. But she made no sound, only trembling eyes. Nam held out his hand steadily. "I know, you didn't mean to. But if you stay, you'll no longer be yourself." Trang softly shook her head, then picked up the comb and began brushing her hair. Loose strands fell onto her shoulders, then vanished. Outside, Hung began to chant a prayer. The woman across the room held up a bronze mirror, aiming it toward the large glass one. Trang moved closer to Nam in the mirror. Her hand reached out, lightly trembling. Nam didn't move, but his eyes began to cloud. His reflection slowly began to smile. The reflected Nam spoke, but no sound came out. "If you save her, are you sure you'll get out?" Nam shook his head firmly, speaking clearly. "I don't need to get out. I just need her to." Then he took Trang's hand in the mirror. Everything went dark. Everything around Nam felt like it was being pulled backward. He felt his body dragged through a cold liquid, not wet, but heavy like stone. His ears rang. His eyes saw nothing but darkness. Then a faint light appeared, speckled, like stars in a fog. Nam was standing in his own rental room, but everything was reversed. Furniture floated on the ceiling, the bed pressed against the top, and the mirror was on the floor like an open gate. From the end of the room, a soft voice called out, "Nam." He turned. It was Trang, standing by the stained wall, her sunken eyes staring at him without blinking. She spoke again, her voice light as wind. You are the first person who didn't leave me behind. Nam walked toward her. He gently placed his hand on her shoulder and nodded. I don't know if I can get you out, but I won't leave you here alone. Trang gave a faint smile. Her face no longer looked terrifying, only filled with sorrow. The kind held by someone trapped between life and death. Nam asked, why did you use the spell? Trang lowered her head, hands clutching her shirt hem. I truly loved Tam, but when I found out he was marrying someone else, I couldn't take it. I just wanted him to come back. I just wanted a family. Nam remained silent. A feeling rose in his chest, not fear, but compassion. Trang looked up. But I did it wrong. I brought home an old mirror and performed the ritual incorrectly. I cut myself, wrote both our names into the reflection. But, her voice caught. When I finished, he came. But not to come back. He told me to stop bothering him. Nam held her hand tighter. That's why you couldn't leave. Trang nodded, tears streaming down. The mirror keeps what's unfinished. I was trapped inside. And after that, anyone who stepped into that room would be pulled into the mirror's lair. Nam looked around. The space began to fold in. The furniture, desks, books, lamps, began to fall downward in reverse. The room was turning inside out. Trang clung to Nam's hand, terrified. There's not much time. If the room closes, you'll be trapped in my place. Nam looked at her, firm. You have to walk out. Through the mirror, you'll be freed. Trang trembled, stepping back. I'm scared. If I go, you won't come back. Nam nodded. I know, but you've been here far too long. On the floor, the mirror began to shake violently. Light pulsed upward like waves. The reflection gate was opening, but would close forever in moments. Nam gently pushed her shoulder. Go. Trang shook her head, tears pouring. No, I don't want to trade my life for someone else's. Nam smiled, eyes calm. I won't die. I'm just staying a little while. Trang bit her lip, then suddenly hugged Nam. Her whole body was ice cold, but that embrace felt real. Then she ran, leapt into the mirror. A blinding white light flared. The space collapsed. Everything went dark. Outside, Hung jolted. The incense bowl snapped in two. The room trembled as if there was an earthquake. The large mirror fell from the wall, shattering into pieces. The woman cried out. Nam. No one was inside the salt circle. Only, the silk cloth Trang had used lay within the white ring. Hung rushed in, shouting, Nam, give Nam back to me. But the room was empty. No reply. 3 days later, they renovated the rental room. The landlady taped a sign outside, Room 6 no longer for rent. She gave no reason, just shook her head when asked. Hung packed up all of Nam's belongings and brought them home. He placed Nam's laptop on the table, planning to open it one last time. But the screen turned on by itself, even though the battery had died days ago. On the black screen, white letters typed out slowly, as if someone was pressing each key. I'm still alive, but I'm watching. The screen flickered. For a split second, Hung's reflection appeared, but behind him stood a man inside the mirror. Blurry, but it looked very much like Nam. The laptop shut off. The room darkened in an instant, leaving only the quiet, steady sound of the electric fan spinning. Hung sat frozen. He gasped for breath, wiping sweat from his forehead. That message, it couldn't have been a coincidence. The battery was dead. The charger wasn't plugged in. So who typed that? I'm still alive, but I'm watching. Thinking of that, a cold chill ran down Hung's spine. He turned on the lights, grabbed his phone, and opened his old messages with Nam. The last message, from a few days ago. If she hasn't left, it means there's still something unsaid. Now, Trang was gone, but Nam had not returned. The next morning, Hung went to Bu Quang Temple. He told everything, his voice hoarse from sleepless nights. I saw him. I saw Nam. It wasn't a dream, not a hallucination. He's still alive. He's just inside. The woman was silent for a long time, then softly said, there's something I didn't say. I didn't want you kids to go deeper. But, if you've seen him, it means the karmic tie is still bound. She went inside and brought out a small wooden box. Inside was a shard of mirror, sharp as a blade, gleaming with a pale white sheen. She placed it in Hung's hand, speaking slowly. This is a fragment from the cursed mirror, part of a ritual left unfinished. If you truly want to go in, look into this at exactly 3:06, when the mirror opens again. Hung clutched the shard in his palm, eyes determined. Even if I have to stay, I want to try. That night, Hung returned to room 6. The landlady saw him and jumped in surprise. Wait, what are you doing? I just locked that room. Hung didn't say anything. He simply handed over a paper with Nam's forged signature, the one he had made himself. The woman looked at the paper, about to ask something, but then just sighed. You're brave? 2:58 a.m. The room looked as if no one had ever been there. The mirror shattered, salt scattered, paint peeling from the walls. Hung redrew the salt circle, placed the mirror shard in the center. He knelt down, eyes locked onto the mirror's surface. 3 o'clock, nothing happened. 3:03 a light breeze swept through. 3:06 exactly when the clock's hand hit the mark. The shard began to glow, but it didn't reflect Hung. It showed Nam, sitting in an all-white room, utterly still. Nam looked up. His eyes were red. He spoke, though his lips didn't move. You shouldn't have come. Hung gripped the mirror shard tightly, nearly shouting, I'm not leaving you. If the mirror can trap someone, then it must be able to release them too. Nam shook his head. I'm holding it back for you. If you come in, I don't know who'll replace who anymore. The wind picked up. The window banged shut. The curtain hissed. The salt circle began to blur. The shard in Hung's hand grew scorching hot, pulsing with flickering light. Nam frowned, shouted, but it was too late. Hung touched the mirror. A deep crimson light swallowed him whole. The room spun, like it was caught in a whirlpool. Then, silence. When Hung opened his eyes, he found himself lying in a long corridor lined entirely with mirrors. No beginning, no end. Each mirror reflected Hung, but none were the same. There was a laughing Hung, an older Hung, a bloodied Hung, a crying Hung, clutching a broken mirror. And finally, one mirror reflected nothing at all, only Nam standing inside. Nam still wore the same old shirt, his hands stained with blood, eyes sunken. He quietly stared at Hung, didn't say a word. Hung stepped forward, pressed his hand against the mirror. I'm here now. You go. Nam shook his head, mouthing slowly. No, only one person can leave. Hung stepped back, giving a sad smile. Then, I'll stay. You go. Nam closed his eyes. In the mirror, the space around him began to chip away. The world quivered like a sheet of glass being tapped. Nam opened his eyes again, and for the first time, smiled. I owe you one. And then, he stepped through the mirror. Outside, the mirror cracked. Nam collapsed in the middle of the room, gasping, hands trembling, eyes wide. On the floor, mirror shards scattered. No more light, no more Hung, only one sentence, scratched into the cement floor with a fingernail. The mirror keeps one, the other must continue watching. 3 days later, Nam still couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw mirrors, not the old one from the rental, not the endless hallway of reflections, but Hung's face, faintly smiling, hand against the mirror, and then, gone. Nam stayed with Mrs. Sao, Trang's mother, to get away from the rental. She didn't ask much, just quietly cooked, and left sleeping pills by his bed each night. Tonight, Nam sat on the bed, eyes blank. Mrs. Sao brought a bowl of hot ginger tea and sat beside him. She asked softly, You don't blame him? Nam didn't turn back. No, he did what I should have done. Mrs. Sao said nothing, then pulled an old yellowed piece of paper from her pocket. She handed it to Nam. Before Trang went to Saigon, she wrote this letter, but never got to give it. Now you keep it. Nam unfolded it. The handwriting was soft, slightly slanted, like a girl afraid of pressing too hard. If one day I'm no longer here, it might be because I made a mistake. But I never meant to hurt anyone. I just wanted to be loved, just once. Sincerely. Nam stopped reading. He stood, holding the letter, and walked outside. In the yard, a faint crescent moon hung overhead, mist veiling the garden like a dream. He looked up and asked Mrs. Sao, Do you know who gave Trang the mirror? Mrs. Sao looked surprised, then slowly nodded. Yes, her name was Aunt Moy. She lived at the edge of the hamlet. People called her Moy the Mirror. Back when she was young, she made a living reading fates, measuring destinies. Nam furrowed his brow. Is she still alive? Mrs. Sao shook her head. No, but her old house still stands. No one dares go in. They say she once saved someone from inside a mirror, but later that person died mysteriously. And she never did readings again. Nam clenched his fists. Inside him, something stirred. A name, a possibility, a secret not yet closed. The next morning, Nam rode his bike to the end of Hamlet 3. Aunt Moy's house was a low wooden stilt home nestled in a mango orchard. The door hung ajar. No one was around. He stepped inside. Light streamed through rotting wood planks. A stale smell filled the air, like incense long dead, mixed with years of damp soil. In the center of the house, covered by a white cloth, stood a full-length mirror, its ebony frame carved with dragon heads. Nam pulled out his phone to take a picture. The camera passed over the mirror, but it didn't show himself. He froze. Inside the mirror was a strange man, back turned, left hand holding a notebook, right hand a pen. On his shirt, a faded line of embroidery read, "Mirror returns the soul, keeper must keep the promise." Nam trembled. He slowly stepped closer, eyes fixed on the reflection. The man in the mirror turned. It was no one else. It was Hung. He no longer smiled. His eyes were heavy, like someone who had aged years in days, aged by loss. Inside the mirror, Hung raised his hand, placed one finger to his lips, signaling, "Shush." Nam froze. His heart pounded. The mirror glowed, not strong, not pulling, but gently opening. A child's voice echoed from the far end of the house. Thin, like a wisp of smoke. Not the first time, not the last one either. Nam turned around, startled, but no one was there. Only a small wooden comb on the dusty altar. On it, a faint, time-worn inscription. Those who once watched, must never forget. Nam stepped outside. He stood under the eaves, gazing at the misty fields. A truth rose in his chest. It wasn't just Trang. It wasn't just Hung. There were others, who had once stepped in, once replaced, and then were forgotten. The mirror didn't hold just one. The mirror held the memories of those who dared to face pain directly. Nam took a deep breath. He pulled out a small notebook from his backpack and wrote, "Day 3 since Hung disappeared. I saw him in the mirror, but I'm not sure if it was the mirror or me." That night, Nam opened his laptop, for the first time since returning. The screen powered on, steady, no words appeared. He opened the voice recorder, plugged in his headphones. Then he spoke, voice deep, very slow. "My name is Nam. I once looked into a mirror. And I am still watching." At the end of the recording, there was a faint sound of a page being turned. It wasn't Nam's. 1 week later, Nam began returning to normal life, at least on the outside. He still went to the repair shop in District 5, where he'd once worked part-time during college. Still sat in a corner, opening hard drives, applying thermal paste for customers. But inside, Nam knew he had veered permanently off his old path. He didn't sleep in closed rooms, never looked into mirrors at night, always left the light on when showering. Each night, before bed, Nam listened to the same old recording, its final moment still the strange page-turning sound. Faint, but rhythmic, like a soft knock on layers of dusty memory. Then one day, while checking a customer's device, Nam opened a temporary storage folder. Inside, he found a strange video with no title, in MP4 format, with a duration of exactly 6 minutes and 6 seconds. He clicked play. The video showed a small rental room, eerily similar to his own, but clearly not the same. A mirror hung above the desk, framed with rusted metal. On the floor, someone sat frozen, hands gripping his head, mumbling to himself. The camera angle was slightly tilted, seemingly filmed secretly from a computer. Then a voice from the video made Nam freeze. "My name is Dewey. Day 4 after the reflection appeared. I saw a girl in the mirror. But it wasn't someone else, it was me. Back in high school." Nam paused the video. Dewey? Who was that? Why did his words sound exactly like what Nam had once felt? Nam played the video again, this time turning the volume up. At the 5th minute, the light in the video's room flickered out. The reflection in the mirror faded, but in the final flash of light, a second figure appeared behind Dewey, placing a hand on his shoulder. The moment that hand touched him, the screen went completely black. That afternoon, Nam tracked down the name on the rental record, Dewey Nguyen. Address: Room 303, Old Boarding House, Lac Long Quan Street. Nam arrived at 5 p.m. The building was damp, walls peeling. Room 303 was locked. but a neighbor said, "That guy moved out 2 months ago. No one knows where he went." Right before he left, he smashed the mirror in his room, blood splattered all over the wall. Nam asked, "Do you know where that mirror is now?" The neighbor replied, "The landlady threw it out back. None of us dared touch it." Nam went around the back, slipping through a narrow path between two old walls. In the overgrown weeds, a broken mirror lay face down in the dirt, its frame twisted and bent. Nam crouched down, about to flip it over, when he saw a line of dried blood scratched into the back, as if someone had written it by hand. Not every mirror is meant for reflection. Nam froze. From deep within his stomach, a shiver spread outward. What had happened to Trang? To Hung wasn't unique. He sank to the ground, head spinning. Could it be these mirrors were connected? A network? A mirrored hallway? A reflective plane? Where everyone who used a reversed spell or soul reading ritual was being held. Nam recalled the details. Trang had a mirror. Hung entered through an opening ritual. Aunt Moi once freed someone from a mirror. Now Dewey, a name never mentioned, was also missing. Just the same, Nam whispered, "This isn't a spell. This is a system." That night, Nam went to see Mrs. Sao. He told her about the video, about Dewey, about the identical room. She trembled. After a while, she pulled a small box from the drawer. She opened it. Inside were 3 broken mirror shards, each labeled Trang 2019, Dewey 2022, Unknown 2016. Nam looked at her, stunned. "You knew about this?" Mrs. Sao nodded, her voice low. "Someone once collected broken mirrors from strange disappearance cases. An old monk, he's passed now. Before he died, he gave them to me, told me that if one day, the 4th person, appears, I must give them the final shard." Nam said nothing. She handed him the 4th shard. It had no name, only a single symbol carved on it. Infinity. No beginning, no end. Nam held the shard, his eyes blazing with resolve. "I will find Hung, and if anyone else is still trapped in that mirrored corridor, I will bring them back." 11:59 p.m. Nam sat in the old rental room, where it all began. On the floor were 4 mirror shards, arranged in a circle, each facing a different direction. In his palm was the final shard, carved with the infinity symbol. He took a deep breath. The scent of salt, incense, and rotting wood blended into a thin, floating haze. The phone rang. It was Mrs. Sao, her voice trembling. "Are you sure? Once the mirrors are linked, there's no turning back." Nam answered softly, eyes steady. "If I don't go, someone else will be called." Then he hung up. 12:06 a.m. All 4 mirror shards trembled lightly. Reflections began to appear faintly in each shard. Trang, sitting with her back turned, long hair covering her, holding a comb. Hung, eyes somber, like someone who's lived in silence too long. Dewey, hands clutching his head, mumbling something unintelligible. A stranger, in a long white robe, face blank, as if their identity had been erased. Nam placed the infinity shard in the center. A burst of light flared. The ground cracked open, not breaking, just glowing, as if a hidden tunnel had revealed itself. Nam closed his eyes, then opened them again. "I don't want to keep watching, but I can't pretend I didn't see." He stepped in. Scene shifts. Nam stood in an endless corridor, lined on both sides with countless mirrors, some large, some small, some cracked, some gleaming like new. On every mirror, there was a reflection of someone trapped. No 2 were alike. No one spoke. They only watched and waited. At the end of the corridor stood a round mirror, rimmed with mother of pearl, like the final gate. Inside that mirror was Nam, walking toward himself. But it wasn't the present him. It was child Nam, with frightened eyes, holding the oval mirror his mother once kept on her vanity. That mirror had shattered long ago. Nam stepped closer. The little boy in the mirror looked up and asked, voice soft as wind, "If you bring everyone out, where will you be?" Nam answered without hesitation, "I'll stay, but I won't disappear." The child nodded, placed his hand on the mirror. The entire corridor began to quake. Each mirror shard burst apart, but made no sound. Only white light spread like mist. Trang opened her eyes. Dewey woke up, glancing around like someone roused from a long dream. Hung sat quietly, tears sliding down, and then smiled. All of them were being pushed out. White light surrounded Nam. The round mirror spun, then sealed shut. 1 year later, Hung sat in the old cafe, holding a stack of printed pages. He was writing the story, all of it, leaving nothing out. On the table, an old phone with a voice recorder app open. He pressed record, then began. I'm Hung, the one my friend pulled out of the mirror. Today, I'm telling this story because I believe someone out there hasn't been named yet. He paused, listened, no strange sounds. But, in the surface of his black coffee, the reflection showed a rental room. Not the cafe, not the table, but a wooden room, with a small altar, an old mirror, and someone sitting with their back turned, writing in a notebook. Hung leaned in, narrowing his eyes. Inside the reflection, the person looked up. It was Nam, not older, not different, just silent, with gentle eyes. He slowly nodded, then smiled. The coffee rippled, the reflection vanished. Hung sat still, a tear dropping onto the white page. The final words were written. The mirror holds the soul holds another.